A very good morning to you. My name is Daniel Wahome, and this is Sports Check on this Monday morning, the 8th day of June 2026. And to be very precise, we are 3 hours, 11 minutes, 59 seconds to the start of the FIFA World Cup 2026. The kickoff match is on Thursday, 10 p.m. East African time. Mexico against South Africa. Quite a coincidence, given that in 2010, the opening game was South Africa against Mexico. That's part of what we're going to be taking a look at. And also in the news, a big story that everyone will have their eyes on news-wise today is the High Court. The three-judge bench of the High Court is sitting today, and they are at Milimani, and they have decided not to use the courtroom, but to use a ceremonial hall. This is going to serve as the court for today. And at the ceremonial hall, a decision is going to be made as to whether the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, was impeached in the proper manner or if his impeachment is going to stand. That is the big decision that is being made at the courts today. We'll be taking a look at what's going on at the Milimani Law Court. Our reporter is Ruth Wambwe. She's going to be taking us through that. And it's a Monday morning, and that means that there are a lot of activities that are going to be happening at the committee stages in Parliament. So the Mediation Committee on the Division of Revenue Bill 2026 will continue their deliberations today. And this is in the committee room at Bunge Towers. The Senate Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations is going to meet with the Speaker of the County Assembly of Isiolo, the Honorable Abdullahi Banticha, and the entire leadership of the County Assembly. And this is about where they occupy the current County Assembly Hall. That's another one. The government spokesman, the Honorable Senator Dr. Isaac Mwaura, will be giving a media address today at his media center at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. And also, so those are just some of the stories that we are going to be looking at from the news perspective. So there's a lot that we can do. And also, remember, this is KBC Channel 1. The real announcement about the FIFA World Cup 2026. Be on standby for that, so because we'll be having that conversation. And to get into, before we get into our first conversation, because today our conversation this morning is all about the FIFA World Cup. We expect to be joined by one man who covers African football. His name is Nuhu Adams. We expect that he's going to be joining us from Ghana later today, and Kevin Tia will be talking about the numbers. But it's before we get into that, Anonge is a sign language interpreter at the moment. So, here we go. Tiras Wayakithuku is with us. Yeah, he's been part of our conversation around football throughout. And Tiras, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Daniel Wahome.
Yes.
I almost said good afternoon because I'm fast forwarding the clock. I wish I could. What? To the World Cup. I can't wait. Anxiety,
all right,
excitement, the thrill.
We can be patient for another 3 hours, 3 days, 11 hours, 56 minutes. Anyway, 3.5 days. It's time to we can be patient enough for that. But Tiras, let's first take a look at this FIFA World Cup 2026, and we know there's this whole thing about Gianni Infantino and grand things. So he comes in and says that we are going to have an expanded World Cup, 48 teams. And the last time we had a World Cup expanded was way back in 1998, France, where we saw the tournament move from 24 teams to 32 teams. This time around is from 32 to 48. That move by FIFA, an idea by Gianni Infantino and rubber stamped by everybody down the FIFA chain, the Bureau of the Council, the Executive Committee, and then the Congress.
But to be fair, is it really Gianni Infantino's idea?
It is.
Had it not been floated before? Had we not had this kind of conversation?
We know him and grand things.
Had we not had this kind of conversation before? And that time, I remember Diego Armando Maradona, Mexico 86, World Cup winning captain with Argentina, supporting the idea. So I think the idea was there before him, Infantino, but he came big on it and he's run away with it and he's implemented it. We can't quite tell right now because there's been a lot of changes in football, some of which have been welcome, others not quite so. But then they've come in and guys have sort of liked them, although some still bring up and about a lot of controversy. So the 48 World Cup tournament That's like what, 104 games?
104 matches, yes.
You can imagine.
And it's going to take 39 days. We know a World Cup is done in 30. This is 39.
We're used to 64 games. And then something that could impact, and this is just coincidental, the sheer growth in number from 32 to 48 of participants is also the time zone. Now you have 104 games to watch in some quite crazy time zone. America and the Americas in general, the difference in time between them and us is humongous. And so that could also factor in. You're telling me on Saturday, a 10 p.m. kickoff for the World Cup opener, and then at 5 a.m. Friday, the second match of the tournament. Now, all these things come into play. Imagine having to watch that over and over and over again within 39 days, 104 matches. And that could also factor in.
You know what's interesting is I was having a conversation with Sipora Muthoe this morning, trying to look at the timings for, the opening ceremony and the performance by Burna Boy, Shakira and that. It's at 11:30 a.m. in Mexico. That is 8:30 p.m., 9 hours clean. So I'm just trying to imagine what the Japanese will be saying.
And the Australians.
And the Australians. Because I try to figure out a very good example. I mean, you were part of the World Cup in 2022.
In 2002. Yes. South Korea and Japan.
South Korea, Japan.
Yes.
You had to be here at 6 a.m. because there is an 8 a.m. kickoff.
It was crazy. It was crazy. And then it all piles up. You don't realize how crazy it is because you're caught in the moment. But when that moment ends, and I'd never done the World Cup before, you're like, gosh, I'm back to the reality I knew of before the World Cup. Where was I really for that last 1 month? And you know where you are and you know what you are doing, but it just takes you away. So yes, the time zones could factor in with the increased amount of games that's going to be there and the increased amount of teams. So yes, prepare yourself well, Wahome. You'll have some long nights and long days. You won't even be able to tell whether today is Saturday or Sunday. All days will be the same.
All right. There's a Tanzanian phrase that was used musically, and eventually it became part of the lingo whenever there's a lot of sports happening. I mean, you can think of Rio 2016, the World Cup that was also in Mexico, in Brazil in 2014. Hakuna kurara. That's a conversation that we have.
And yes, I also did the 2022 World Cup because you mentioned that. Sort of
but that was the same time. I mean,
that was okay.
That was normal time
for us here, but maybe for Australians and the Japanese,
actually,
and the South Koreans,
think of even for the Americans.
Yeah, and even for the Americans, to be fair to them,
because so this time around,
so it's always that way for some part of the earth or the other.
So overall, the groupings, and we are seeing this. I want to take a look at the first game. Coincidence, or is it just incident?
Both.
Mexico against South Africa. They're in the same pool. They will be opening that game, and then Korea Republic against Czechia at later at 5 a.m. This being played, the opening game being played at that iconic Azteca Stadium.
Azteca Stadium. That's where Diego Armando Maradona scored the best goal ever scored at a World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah.
In Mexico.
Left foot 6 English players down.
And also the final in which he won the World Cup. Coincidence and incidents as well. It's a mix of both. It depends on how one chooses to look at it. And here we are again, Mexico opening up a World Cup with South Africa. They did as much in South Africa 2010 when South Africa played host to the World Cup and the entire world. It's one of those things that just happen. History has an uncanny way of repeating itself. And this one has come quite fast, just 16 short years later. And that game will set the tempo for the rest of the tournament. That's what openers do. And if you remember that 2010 opener, Shabalala, that brilliant goal, the solo run, the hard strike, everything African, he brought it out with that one move and finishing it off. So this is going to set the pace for the World Cup, and it's the fans are very similar. Mexican fans are like African fans, very vibrant. They dance out there on the stands. They sing. Then the Mexican wave be prepared to see quite a bit of that on the opening day. So the hype around the whole thing, it's not just the football, the euphoria, and a lot of people are saying it's taken time this time to sort of kick in. They're not feeling that World Cup euphoria yet. So this game is going to be more than just a game of football. It's going to be the game that ushers us into that 1 month and 10 days, just slightly less than 10 days or so, of excitement, of thrills and everything. And once you get there, for some people who've never watched a World Cup, there were the last World Cup, it's going to be a month like no other. I remember my first World Cup. I never knew what it was, and then I experienced it. My goodness, it's the best feeling in the world, and you look forward to it every 4 years. So this game is going to be more than just a game of football. It's going to be the hype builder, potentially, for the next 1 month and slightly less than 10 days.
Well, let's also talk about this group specifically, because everyone has a story and how they get past it. Mexico, South Africa, Korea Republic, and Czechia.
Mexico, South Africa.
Because this is how actually this tournament works. It's an interesting game because the format is that there's also the introduction of a new phase of games, which is known as the round of 32. So this is how it works. You have got 48 teams. They are grouped. You've got 12 groups of 4 teams each. So that means the top 2 teams are 24, who are going to qualify automatically for the round of 32. Then the teams that are placed third, they look at the best 8, and then you have a round of 32, then to the 16, the quarterfinals, the semis, and then the third place playoff in the final. That's how you get that's a very long knockout phase, so to speak. An extra 16 games straight forward because of the round of 32. Which of these teams would be there?
If we start with this particular Group A, potentially it could take, you've mentioned 3 teams going through, the best place, third place team amongst them. So this group potentially gives us that third team. Mexico, South Africa here look like they are going through, but Czech Republic, in the event that South Africa don't take number 2, I see Czech Republic. And potentially either South Africa or Czech Republic could be number 3 in this team and proceed. South Korea have been struggling a bit quite of late, and I really don't want to underrate them, but they haven't impressed me as much as they have in the past. So I'm not hinging my bets on them in as far as getting past this group is concerned. Although this tournament is going to come in with a lot of surprises. There are teams I might write off here, like I'll be tempted to write off Curaçao, and then what you find them there in the round of 32. So yeah, it's, I think Mexico, South Africa, Czech Republic from this group.
Well, Korea Republic, we know the quality of players they have.
Yes. Son.
You can mention, I mean, that. Why would you not then be giving them a chance?
I'm giving them that much a chance. I'm leaving the door a bit open for them now to squeeze their head in. Because the Czech Republic represents a region of this world, Eastern stroke Central Europe, that has awoken all of a sudden after quite a bit of slumber. And we're seeing them doing very, very well in recent years. A good example being Croatia, who were World Cup finalists in 2018 and World Cup finalists in 2022. And if you remember Croatia in the 90s, that's when they showed their first signs of being a threat. And they kept hope alive for that part of the world. I think they even knocked out Germany from 1 World Cup.
That was the 98 World Cup.
That was the 98 World Cup.
If you want the data, I can give you. I know why.
Go on. Yes. So that has sort of roped in some hope for Eastern stroke Central Europe. And those teams do pretty well in the UEFA Conference League. And they make it very difficult for other teams from Western Europe to even qualify for the UEFA Conference League, because they beat them in the qualifiers, the third group phase, the third phase of UEFA Conference League qualifiers. And then they become a bit of a headache in the UEFA Conference League itself. So Czech Republic kind of represents that problem for South Korea. That's why I'm sort of just leaving the door this much open for South Korea. South Africa, they've been in the doldrums in as far as World Cup football is concerned for quite a while, but they're back. And I'm looking at their recent performances at AFCON and saying, yes, they had a bit of a problem in the way they dropped the players who didn't make the final cut. It was very unceremonious, and it could impact them positively or negatively.
South Africa's story is just drama.
It's drama.
It's
a soap.
Drama.
It's a soap. And that could hamper South Africa's chances because they were doing so well until then, I think. Well, on the face of it. But for me, I think Mexico as hosts, they're going to ride on that wave, and they're going to do pretty well and possibly top this group.
Yes, and when you take a look at, when it comes to this Group A, it's very simple. I mean, it's one of the toughest, and it will be quite a big call to see who makes it through after the 3 rounds of matches. And for these teams, and this is something that is interesting about this World Cup, is the turnaround time, 4 days or 5 days, which is not something that we usually see.
Yes, turnaround in what sense?
Game to game for every team. Normally it's 3 days.
Yeah, you play today, and then your next game is in another 5 days, more or less. 4
days,
yes. That's also got to do, the amount of teams has affected the fixtures. So you remember there's an extra round of games to be played.
True.
And all these games are being played for television. It's not just for the audiences that are going to be gracing the different stadia here and there. These games are played for television, and they must fit within that time range when they can capture the most amount of viewership across the globe. So when you throw in the numbers as well, you can't play a game within the time you would have envisaged to, the time you'd have most preferred to. You now have to spread them to fit in within the 104 game range, and that obviously has affected the fixtures in terms of distributing. You play today, you're going to have to wait for another 5 days. But that's obviously in the group stages, and once we're done with the group stages, we'll have less and less games, although there's the recently introduced round of 32 to contend with. So that will also mean more games, and it might mean an extra day of wait before you play again.
Yes, just to put it into context, Mexico played their first game on the 11th. Their second game is on the 19th. But if you look at, because of the time zoning, it's going to be on the 18th after a week.
That's why you find England have a friendly on this Wednesday, and the tournament is actually beginning on Thursday. So you'll find that their teams playing friendlies up until the last and final minute before kickoff.
All right, yes. And by the way, like I mentioned to you, we'll be having conversations, especially about when we get to the group where we have got Ghana, and that is Group L. And I think we should just jump to it because we're looking at the African representation. And joining us via Zoom from Ghana is one person who has decided African football is his bread and butter and it's going to be his story. Nuhu Adams joining us. Nuhu, a very good morning to you.
Good morning from Ghana.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Ghana making it to the World Cup, back-to-back World Cups after Qatar 2022. But lots happening, especially, after the Africa Cup of Nations. Before, the bringing of Carlo Queiroz. Just give us that transition period, Nuhu, so that we understand how, the Black Stars preparations have been going and the squad that has been named.
Well, it hasn't been that easy with the Black Stars, especially not qualifying for the African Cup of Nations 2025 in Morocco. You see that all the teams that were able to qualify for the tournament at least use the tournament to test the squad they have. Ghana couldn't have that kind of opportunity. Having not qualified for the AFCON has really affected the preparations of the Black Stars for the World Cup. And I think since we qualified for the World Cup, about 5 matches now, we've managed only a draw, lose all the others. So it makes things very, very difficult. Yeah, you mentioned Carlos Queiroz. Queiroz came in after Ghana lost to Germany in the last friendly match. The coach hasn't had enough time to test the players he has. He hasn't even tested the kind of strategy or tactics he wants to use at the World Cup. He has very limited time. He has only played one friendly, that was against Wales a few days ago when we drew 1-1. He's still trying to get another friendly, maybe behind closed doors. And it was there's a report that Ghana will play against Honduras on June 10th, just to make sure he fine-tune his squad. So I think this period hasn't been that rosy for the Black Stars. And the coach Carlos Queiroz is very new with the team. Yes, he's an experienced coach. He has gone to the Cup 5 times. This will be his 6th World Cup, but he hasn't had enough preparations with the Black Stars, and I think it is going to go a long way to affect the team during the tournament.
Well, let's also talk about one of the biggest conversations that's always in Ghana. I mean, for the right reasons and for the wrong reasons, and it has got to do with only one name. Ayew. Abedi Peles, did his duty over 10 years for Ghana over the 80s into the early 90s. And now it's Jordan Ayew, Andre Ayew. I mean, it's a very odd squad selection where it's almost, where you have people in high office discussing, whether Jordan should be there, whether Andrew should be there. But besides that, what's been the consensus on Jordan? I mean, it's not every time that you hear somebody has played for a national team for 17 years.
Yeah, it's been mixed reactions with regards to the day Ayew and then Jordan Ayew. Jordan is already in the team. Jordan was the main man for Ghana in the qualifiers. He scored 7 goals and assisted another 7. So clearly, Jordan, who is now the captain, was on the plane going to the World Cup. But the issue is with his senior brother, who is Andre Ayew. Yes, a lot of politicians, a lot of big people, a lot of big men in the authority were talking about his inclusion in the squad for the World Cup. Yet they try to do everything they can to get Andre Ayew in the squad. But this is a decision by the coaches. Otuado, who was in charge during the qualifiers, decided not to call up Andre Ayew. So a lot of people were expecting the new coach, Carlos Queiroz, to also include or call back Andre Ayew. But Carlos Queiroz has also decided to exclude him from the squad. So I think it's purely a decision of the coaches. There's nothing authorities can do about it. Carlos Queiroz is an experienced coach. We know his pedigree. We know his CV. So for him to decide that he's not taking Andre Ayew to the World Cup, I think it's a decision we must respect. Andre Ayew is a fine player. He has the experience. He has been playing for the national team since 2008. This could have been his 5th World Cup or so. He has played so many matches for the Black Stars at the World Cup, at the AFCON, at every level he has done it. But the coaches feels they will not need his presence at the camp or at the camp for the national team. So yeah, I think we must respect that decision from the coaches. Yeah, clearly from some of us we were aware that if Otuado was still the coach, there was no way Andre Ayew was going to the World Cup. So when the change came that Otuado is replaced with Carlos Queiroz.
Well, no, let's also talk about some of the players who are not
it was Otto who had different issues with Andre, but Carlos Queiroz came and maintained the same decision.
All right, well, great insights, and also in studio here we've got Tiras Wayaki. I know he's going to be throwing in, something, one or two. As we continue the conversation, let's talk about players who will be missing out from the Black Star squad. And I think the biggest name, and for very many people, not just in Ghana, but even across the continent, because of his exploits, where they've seen him play in Europe, is Mohamed Kudus missing out on a World Cup slot. And, you know, this not because of form or anything, but injury. But you could talk about the other players that, you know, we would be looking out for, but have not made it to the World Cup, not because of form, but due to, you know, extraneous circumstances.
Yeah. I think the injuries also make the Black Stars team look very ordinary. Mohamed Kudus has been the pillar in the team. He has been the main man. In the last World Cup, Kudus was everything the Black Stars needed in Qatar. And today, he's out with an injury. That's very disappointing and very embarrassing on the part of the player. The player did everything he could just to make sure he's fit for the World Cup, but very unfortunate, the doctors ruled him out. If you put Mohamed Kudus aside, we are also losing our central defenders, the two central defense pair that we've been using in the qualifiers and in all matches we've been playing. Mohamed Salisu and Alexander Chiku. Their pair has been one of the best Ghana has had in recent years. And we are losing both of the defenders. And that's something that is going to affect the team. Now, Carlos Queiroz will have to bring up a new pair of central defenders going into the tournament. And until today, we don't even know who will be starting as central defenders for the Black Stars. That is the main reason why Carlos Queiroz would want to get another friendly, even though it is behind closed doors, just to see which kind of pair will suit his style. So I think the injuries is going to take a toll on the Black Stars team. But we can also trust the players who are in camp now. They have the abilities, they have the capabilities. Given the opportunity, maybe there is a time for them to also shine.
Yes, Tiras, you can go ahead.
My name is Tiras. I'm also on set here with Daniel Wahome. We're in Nairobi, and we are looking forward to watching Ghana play at the World Cup. Not for the first time. They've been there before and done that, really. Just fell short of making a semi-final spot, and that would have made them the first African nation in history at the time to get as far as a World Cup semi-final is concerned. Us guys here have never qualified for a World Cup, and I'm anxious to know, what's the mood like in your country at the moment? What are people saying in the marketplaces, in the suburbs, in the villages? What's the mood like? Are you guys used to this now, or is it feels like the first time? Are you guys excited and super confident?
Yeah. The excitement is always there. Anytime Ghana qualifies for the World Cup, the mood is different. You go to the marketplaces, you go to the shops, you go everywhere, people are talking about the chances of the Black Stars. And the 2010 adventure is one thing Ghanaians always remember. Very close to the semi-finals. Then we missed that penalty on the verge of full time. So people are looking at what can Ghana do to get to that level again. We want to see the Black Stars flourishing. We want to see the Black Stars progressing and facing top countries. So people are just talking about the chances of the Black Stars. They feel we have a very good group. If we are able to navigate against Panama, we get a win, we get all the 3 points against Panama, probably the chances of Ghana qualifying to the next round will be big. So it has been like that. People are excited, but they are also thinking about the chances of the Black Stars advancing to the next round. That's why we are everybody is looking at. We're looking at how are we going to fare against Panama, how our game against England is going to go, how do we make sure we are able to beat Croatia. That has been the conversation. But you know, once it is World Cup, people are excited about it. Yeah, many people will join once Ghana plays the first game and get a win. Once we get a win in our first game, then I can tell you the whole of the country will be backing the Black Stars to achieve more.
And I can tell you the whole of Africa will be behind you, especially us here in Kenya. What's the secret behind this almost regular World Cup qualification? You guys were there in 2006, you were there in 2010, you were there in 2014. Where do you start from? Do you start from the ground, and at what age groups are we looking at here? And how do you work that up? Because you're just like us, but we don't seem to quite get it. What's the secret behind your strategy?
Yeah, I think Ghana got to know the importance of the World Cup after qualifying for the first time in 2006, and ever since, nobody is willing to miss the World Cup, from presidency or the government to the Football Association to the ordinary supporter. Nobody is willing to go to a World Cup without Ghana. So having tasted the importance of the World Cup, everybody put in the effort to make sure we qualify. When the groups are set, we look at the possibilities, try to win all of our home matches. Then the teams that we think we have upper hand over, we try and get wins at their home grounds, and that's enough for you to qualify for the World Cup. And you've seen this World Cup qualifiers. We didn't start on a good note. We struggled to beat Madagascar when we beat them 1-0, but we lost to Comoros. But we decided, no, this is the time to make sure we get all the home games victories. And we started by beating Mali at home, Comoros at home, Madagascar at home. We beat Chad also at home. And then we tried as much as possible, go to Mali, considered first group, and we came back to win that game 2-1 in Bamako. So it has always been the effort of everybody involved to make sure the country qualifies for the World Cup. The government is aware of the importance of participating in the World Cup. The Football Association is aware. Every single fan knows the importance of the World Cup participating, or the Black Stars participating in the World Cup. So when it comes to World Cup qualifiers, everybody put in the effort. The pastors will be doing their own things. The men will also do their own things. The ordinary people will also do their own things there to make sure Ghana is there. Because once Ghana qualified to the World Cup, the name of Ghana just fly to everywhere. You travel to certain countries, they only remember you, or they only remember your country by participating in the World Cup. So World Cup is something every country will have to dream of. And I think very soon we are going to see the Harambee Stars of Kenya also getting the nod to represent Africa in the world.
No, all right, we'll do it once we have a 96 team World Cup. But we hope to do it. I mean, we're looking at 2030. But let's talk about this group. I know we've been having, the conversations. All right, Ghana's going to be World Cup semi-finalists. But your group is not one of the easiest groups. You've got England, and they've proven to be quite an act over, looking at their performances at the Euros and also the kind of friendlies that they've been playing and the deliveries. You've got Croatia, a team that has made it to two back-to-back semi-finals. They were in the finals in 2018, and then taking bronze in 2022. It may be considered an aging team, but you can't write them off. And then you've got Panama. What's the outlook for you for this particular group?
Yeah, I think this is a difficult group, to be honest. You have England in your group, you have Croatia in your group. It's very tough. Like you said, Croatia is always on the quiet. They are always on the quiet, but they are a very dangerous team to play with. Finals in 2018, then bronze medal in 2022 should tell you the sort of team they are having. They are very consistent with their players. Majority of the players who played in the 2018 and 2022 World Cups are still with the team. Luka Modric is there, Mateo Kovacic is around, Ivan Perisic is also around, Andrej Kramaric is also still in the team. They've added, or they've blended with some up-and-coming players and young players, Josko Badiol, Peter Susic, and they have a very solid team. They have the same coach who has guided them through this period, Zlatko Dalic, still at the bench. So Croatia is a force to reckon with. Croatia is among the top 10 teams in the world today. So when you have them in your group, you know that your performance must be approved before you can face them. We have England. England are always the usual customers. They are always favorites. Yeah, even though the last time they won the World Cup was 1966. Looking at the sort of personnel they have in the team, you look at the pedigree, you look at the experience, you look at the quality. England will always be termed as favorite when it comes to a group like this. So having England as favorite, having Croatia as a tough customer, we can only talk much about having our first game against Panama, and that's a very good start for the Black Stars. Panama, yes, they are ranked higher than Ghana in terms of world rankings, but I think you look at the personnel, you look at the quality, you look at the experience. Ghana is a little bit ahead of Panama. So if we are able to get to the maximum points against Panama, then we can start thinking of how we are able to get at least a draw against Croatia or England, because the World Cup has been expanded to 48 teams. There is a chance for 10 best placed teams to also advance to the next round. So 3 points will be enough, but you have to look at how you are going to avoid conceding goals and how you are able to score goals. So it will be very, very prudent for Ghana if we plan beating Panama in the first game and then get at least a draw against Croatia or England, which is not going to come easy. These teams are established. These teams are teams people even believe they have the chance of winning the World Cup. So playing against them is always going to be difficult. But I think we have to start everything by beating Panama in the first game. If we are able to beat Panama in the first game, I think the confidence and motivation will come. Then we see which of the teams we can draw against, whether England or Croatia. Then we can be rest assured of next round in the World Cup.
Well, it's always good that, I mean, the beauty of the game of football is upsets. I mean, still remember Kingdom of Saudi Arabia beating Argentina, and that was the talk of the World Cup. Eventually, Argentina won the World Cup, but there's always the story of upsets. Now, Nuhu, let's take a look at, the other African teams that are there. Let's talk about your neighbors, Cote d'Ivoire. This is one team that everyone says they've had a golden generation. They've had everything to work with. But how do you analyze the squad that has been picked, and also the fact that, their group may look on paper as one that's easy to talk about, but overall, it's going to be a tough ride for them?
Yeah. Cote d'Ivoire are doing so well. They are friendly against France. Just told the rest of the world that Ivory Coast are ready for the World Cup. And not just France, their last 3 games or their last 3 friendlies has been very impressive. They beat South Korea 4-0. They beat Scotland in Scotland 1-0 before beating France. And they have the youngest squad at the World Cup. So having the youngest squad at the World Cup, I think the coach MS Faye will know how to bring out the best of these players just to make sure they can compete. They are in a very tight group. They have Germany, and then they have Ecuador. Yeah, Germany will always be favorites against Cote d'Ivoire, but I think they are at par with Ecuador. If they are able to get their strategies right, they should be able to beat Ecuador. Curaçao in that group is going to be the Crippen boys. Yeah, first time qualifying for the World Cup, they will try to prove a point, but I don't see Curaçao being a tough customer for Cote d'Ivoire. They should be able to beat Curaçao, and then try as much as possible to beat Ecuador. If Cote d'Ivoire are able to do this, 6 points will be enough to qualify them to the next round. I believe in the squad they possess. They have very good players. One of the players is Ian Diomande, who is being chased by top clubs in Europe, Liverpool, Paris Saint-Germain. Other big clubs are also chasing this lad. And he's going to be a star of the tournament for Ivory Coast. Aside from him, they have Amad Diallo, who is tried and tested, big player in the Manchester United setup. You come to the midfield, they have Frank Kessier. He did not be mentioned. They have Seko Fofana. These players are players who have played at the highest level of football in the world. So Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire have a very good team, and I expect them to do more at the World Cup, especially advancing from the group stages to the next round.
Well, Nuhu, I mean, Tiras is here, and he's got, and you know, this conversation about Germany, they won the World Cup in 2014, but after that, no World Cup has gone well for them. Was it a case of too much football being played? We saw them play some beautiful, wonderful football in 2018, out at the group stage. 2022, another story. The question then is, at the moment, what is Nagelsmann going to do with his German side? What's the delivery that is expected of him?
The wider picture of that is that even before we have a dig at Germany, it was the defending champions' curse as far as World Cup football is concerned. Because if you remember, France won it in 1998, 2002, out at the group stages. And then, obviously, Brazil won it in 2002, but that curse didn't quite seem to affect them. They went all the way to the quarterfinals, got knocked out by France. Yes, by France. Zidane and France, his brilliance. 2010, the World Cup winners,
Spain.
World Cup winners of 2006 in 2010, Italy, didn't quite live up to expectations in 2010. And then Spain won it in 2010, but in 2014, they got knocked out quite early. And yes, Germany won it in 2014 and then got knocked out in the group phase of 2018. But I think where Germany went wrong is that they held on so long than they should have to their 2014 World Cup winning coach. He had outlived his usefulness, if I may be permitted to say so, but in a positive way. And it was time for him to pack his bag. But they kept him on and on and on. And what that does, it drains a team. Any team. Arsenal kept Arsene Wenger much longer than he should have stayed. And it drained the team. They went, at some point they looked like they were completely irrelevant and everyone was laughing at them. It's taken them time to turn things around. And that's the same case with Germany, I think, under Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann is doing a fantastic job. And they say a new broom sweeps clean. He's been sort of doing that with Germany. And it took the eventual winners of the Euro 2024, and that was Spain, to knock them out of the Euro 2024, Germany. So they've been doing well under Nagelsmann. And look at their friendlies. How did they survive the other day against the United States of America in a friendly in the US? That game was America all the way. But when you look at the score sheet, it tells you a different story. Germany were able to win 2-1. So under Nagelsmann, they're doing pretty well. And I'm looking at them at quarterfinal and above. So in as far as Germany is concerned, I'm not really worried about Germany.
Well, let's see how Cote d'Ivoire pulls that one off. And Nuhu, Senegal, I mean, this is there's an interesting story about Senegal. Can one of the Africa, I mean, with the exception, I think, of South Africa, Tunisia, Egypt, those are Senegal. Those are the African teams that have got players from home. But Senegal, put together with France, Norway, and Iraq, Nuhu, where would you see the Senegalese side, and can we see them? You know, Aliou Cissé gave us everything that was, I mean, that we could get from him. But here is a Senegalese side. They are being coached by a man who was on the bench in 2002, but in the wrong color.
Yeah, we have an interesting game to watch. The game between France and Senegal, and it's going to be the repeat of what happened in 2002. Remember, Senegal qualifying for the World Cup for the first time, and their first match was against defending champions France. But a goal from Papa Bouba Diop made sure Senegal got the victory over France, and France will want to take a revenge. So this game is going to be very, very interesting. And the friendly against, I think the France friendly defeat against Cote d'Ivoire is painting a picture how their game against Senegal is going to face. Senegal, they have it all in terms of quality, in terms of experience. They have a very good coach on the bench as well. And we also saw their performance at the AFCON. So Senegal is one team a lot of people are looking up to when it comes to the African teams at the World Cup. Senegal is one team a lot of people take. Their first game against France should be setting the tone for them. Yes, it's going to be a difficult game. We all know the France of 2002 is quite different from the France of today. So we cannot say that Senegal are going to get it easy or Senegal are going to win over France. But the Senegal have the qualities, they have the abilities of putting France in their proper place. They will give France a run for their money. At least a draw, Senegal should be able to do it. And then we look at the other teams in the group. Norway, Norway is also a top side. A team with Ellen Haaland, Martin Odegaard, so should not be easy. But Senegal, looking at the quality and the sort of team they've been able to come up with, they should be able to stick off Norway. Iraq in that group is going to be a ripping boys. Yeah, Iraq are boosted by the draw they had against Spain, but I don't see their chances in this group. So Senegal should be able to get 3 points against Iraq, another 3 points against Norway, maybe a possible draw against France. Senegal is capable of topping this group, but football comes with its own stories and dynamics. We cannot stick our neck out and say Senegal are going to top the group. But you look at the permutations, they have the abilities, they have the capabilities of doing it. So I think seeing Senegal in the next round shouldn't be a surprise that they have what it takes to do that.
Well, let's talk about Morocco. I mean, the FIFA World Cup in 2022. I mean, it was basically two stories: Argentina and Lionel Messi, and then you had Morocco with their fairy tale run to the semi-finals. They're playing against Brazil. Haiti, Scotland are the other opponents. But what is it that Wakbi has got to do to keep up with the legacy that Walid Regragui left with the Morocco side for the time that he'd been in charge for close to 6 years?
Yeah. The one go to Morocco, even before the opening game of the AFCON. A lot of Moroccan fans, a lot of Moroccan journalists were calling for the head of Walid Regragui. So it had nothing to do with his performance. I did feel his style of play is not going to favor Morocco along the line, and it is common. Bias set in because Wabi had led the Morocco under-20 team to win the World Cup, and then Tariq Setiu also winning the Chan tournament and the Arab Cup. They feel these were better than Walid Regragui. So there was no surprise when Walid Regragui was told to step down after the AFCON. Yeah, Mohamed Wabi, I mean, won the under-20 World Cup with Morocco. A lot of expectations are on him. A lot of people are expecting a lot from him, and he's trying to change the style a bit. I saw Morocco yesterday in their game against Norway. The game was flowing. They were possessing, and then were creating a lot of chances as well. But they couldn't win the game. It was 1-1 against Norway. It's just a friendly. So I think Wabi will have to double up effort. You need to do more if Morocco are to reach the semi-finals like they reached the semi-finals in the last World Cup. So it's not going to be easy. And then you start the tournament playing against almighty Brazil. It's not going to be easy. We've seen Brazil also in their last friendlies, and they are doing so well. Carlo Ancelotti is a big man. The CV alone is something that should be driving Brazil to at least the semi-finals of the World Cup. So Mohamed Wabi has a lot to do. Morocco have a very decent team. They play more like a European side because most of the players are based in Europe. You have Ashraf Hakimi in PSG, Manchester United. Now they've gotten inside job from Fulham. They have Sadio Riyad also from Crystal Palace. You come to the midfield, Sufyan Amrabat, Azzedine Ounahi. All these players are playing top level football in Europe. So Morocco have a squad that can compete so well with Brazil. And you look at the other teams in the group, I think Haiti shouldn't be a problem for Morocco. Yeah, Scotland, yeah, they have a very good squad. They can step a little bit, but you look at the experience of the Moroccan players and the sort of quality they have. Scotland, yeah, will come stable, but they should be able to see off Scotland as well. So at least I think a 6 points for Morocco in this group will be very, very fair. And then seeing them in the next round will be massive for them. They need to go as far as reaching the semi-final. If they can't reach the semi-finals, at least a quarter-final place will be good for Morocco. But it's not going to come easy. But I believe in them. They have a very good team.
Well, then this is where I want to bring in Tiras, because there's some my apologies. There's something that Nuhu has mentioned, and it is about the style of play. This is Africa. We love the artistic side of it.
Yes.
We acknowledge the science. We want it, but there is that factor about how you play your football. I mean, it was said that Germany at times they played too much scientific football, but lost the art. And there is this whole thing whenever the tactical study group comes in, and they're saying the football at the moment doesn't have much room for the artist. What's your take from that point, and how you'd approach a coach?
I wish I had Jose Mourinho's number. I'd ask him to answer that question. But let me give you the kind of answer that Jose Mourinho would give you. They can keep the art. He's there for the points. He's there for the wins. Keep your art. So really, it's not about the art so much. It's about those victories. I like Nuhu has mentioned the fact that Morocco, they play a bit like the Europeans. And that's true. And that's what they had to change at the last World Cup. They became a defensive counter-attacking side. And it took them places. Japan also employed that kind of mentality, defending in the first half. And in the second half, as soon as the first whistle goes like this, boom, they hit you. And then they'll probably come back and hit you again. And then definitely close the game. And there's no way, there's absolutely no chance for you to come back into that game. So really, it's more about the science now. It's about advancing in this tournament. You employ your science. And that's where it's going to be a bit hard for Morocco this time. Will they go for the defensive counter-attacking system that worked out for them last time? Or will they go for the arts? The arts works in Africa. We're still in that web. We're still in that cycle. You saw how Morocco won Chan, for instance, over here last August. It was the arts. It wasn't the science. It wasn't the defensive counter-attacking football that they played. But remember, at the last Africa Cup of Nations before the one we just did, so I'm talking of the AFCON 2023 played in 2024, we noticed that because of that defensive counter-attacking system, Morocco had lost their identity when they came to AFCON. They had been a side that had been built on the defensive counter-attacking football, and now they had to transition to the arts, the artistic, the beautiful, the flair. And they got lost in that, and that tournament didn't quite work out for them. So we saw them at this last AFCON, and they didn't impress that much. So they still have that identity issue, although they came alive against Cameroon, and I loved that performance in the quarterfinal. I think they beat Cameroon 2-0. It was all from set pieces, yes, which sounds more like science than the arts. But if you look at the build-up plays that led to those set pieces, you'll appreciate the art behind it. So Morocco, their only problem is identifying an identity that they want to play out at this World Cup and sticking to it and implementing it to the full, making sure that it works. Because I've seen Tunisia play that artistic football in the friendlies, and it's not quite worked out for them. You've got to be strategic. And that's where our friend Jose Mourinho, where I started this answer with, finishes off my answer.
Well, Nuhu, let me come to you, and let's take a look at the African nations that we've got. Think of the entire strip of North Africa, with the exception of Libya. bring in South Africa, Cape Verde. They've qualified Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. For the nations that are going to the World Cup, what would be the best way? Are we going to look at the art of football that we love, like what the Brazilians call the jogo bonito, the beautiful game, or are we going to look at what is becoming more and more scientific, especially for teams that have got a big European influence?
Yeah, I think with the exception of Morocco, all the African teams will adopt the avatar of football. We will play according to our strengths, and we will play according to what we know. I've seen DR Congo. I saw DR Congo in their game against Denmark, and that's exactly what they did. They tried to sit deep in defense and then catch Denmark on the counter. That's what DR Congo are going to do, because they know they can't play at the level of the Europeans. So they have to go in with their own style. And DR Congo, DR Congo is one team that is going to give us a real African art of football. So, yeah, with the exception of Morocco, I've seen Egypt also against Spain in their last friendly. They were very compact in defense, very solid in midfield, and then hitting Spain on the counter attack. Ghana, yeah, our game against Wales, which we drew 1-1, was just like that. The first half, we tried as much as possible to contain the Wales pressure and possession, and then second half we decided to pounce on them. We got to go before they could equalize. So I think, with the exception of Morocco, who are trying to play more like the Europeans, all the African countries, or the rest of the African countries, will go in with their own style of play, with the African style of game. We try to continue in the first half, then second half, we try as much as possible to open up and then face you one-on-one. And when we are able to get a goal, we shut the shop and then make sure we claim the victory. So, yeah, the African style will have to be experimented at the World Cup. It is something even most of the people enjoy about Africa. That's why they love African football. So we shouldn't try as much as possible to change that. We go in with our own art, we go in with our own strength and uniqueness, and then I think we will get more than, possibly we can get more than 7-8 African teams in the next round of the World Cup. I'm sure about that.
Oh, Nuhu Adams, thank you very much. You know where the banter continues. Thank you very much for your time this morning. It's getting to 8 o'clock in Accra, Ghana. You know, I was looking at the time when Ghana will be playing against Panama. It's going to be 11 p.m. in Accra. It's going to be 2 a.m. in Nairobi.
Yes,
think of that.
Yes, that's interesting.
So, thank you very much for your time this morning. We'll be doing more of these. And you very well know where we'll take the banter forward, and if Ghana is going to be past the quarterfinals again, we hope to do that. Thank you very much, Ale. Have a good day. That's Nuhu Adams. He's an African football writer. And, you know, with his insights, giving us the story, you know, what he's seen with the African teams, and especially Ghana, which is back at the World Cup again. The only thing I didn't want is for him to remind us that Nigeria and Kenya are in the same Group Q.
What I didn't want him to remind us that Ghana once beat Kenya 9-0. Was it 9 or 11? 9. It was
9-0 at halftime.
9-0 yes.
Jomo Kenyatta left the Jamhuri Park grounds,
yes,
and he never watched that team again. That game ended 12-0. I think it was in 64.
Yes, it was in the 60s.
Charles Gyamfi, I think, was playing in that team.
So I'm glad he didn't remind us of that.
Well, he also wished Harambee Stars well. Anyway, Mogod, just tell me if we'll be taking a quick break at this point. All right. So, serious overall, but let's see. Yeah, the conversation that we've got. So, yes, Mogod, thank you very much. We'll be taking a break and we come back. We'll be having more conversations about the FIFA World Cup. And in the next hour, we'll be joined by Kevin Tia. He's a local sports journalist. And there is and let's talk numbers and leagues and the implication. Because only one African league has more than 10 players, the PSL, and it's because 19 of them are with South Africa. In the next hour, Anwangeshi has been our sign language interpreter.
fear of missing out? Want to keep up with all the latest entertainment news and latest celebrity gossip? From the latest rumors to popping events to the newest fashion trends, here is where you get all the tea or juice when it comes to entertainment, and you get it served on time. All that and so much more on Grapevine every single Monday from 10 p.m. and a rerun every Tuesday from 2 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1. Remember, if you did not see it on Grapevine, then it most probably never happened.
Unacharibu nini? Umesikia vile mzuri? Nani aligundo ikitu bwana? Akasema maembe yaanguka. Oja demokrasia anaitwa Aisha Kinyabuto.
Sisi ndio wale tunakulaga kwa hoteli kubwa kubwa kiasi. Ani ambaye anahusika na upishi kwa hiyo hoteli.
Kida yako wapi?
Ile kiwango ambayo nimeletewa.
Wewe bado uko kiwango ya omena.
Huwezi weka pilipili mingi hivi na expect mtu akule hii samaki.
Si umekula mbaga ungali umemaliza.
Mbona kwa hiyo hoteli nasungusha?
Mwanaume msima unasunguka huku kwa sababu ya chakula.
Mama, wewe ni manager wa hiyo hoteli.
Sasa sijui kwa nini unagombana.
Yani hujuma, yani hujuma.
Ayai.
Ala.
Easy. I am clean. So this leaves you.
See?
Who's he? Hey! Mwanamke anajaribu, si ndio?
Kama
Sijamuona.
Ah?
Sijamuona madam.
Hello. Who's this?
And welcome back to Sports Check on this Monday morning. And we are now counting 3 days and 10 hours to the start of the FIFA World Cup. Actually, if I just take a look at the clock that is on the FIFA website at the moment, it's 3 days, 10 hours, 56 minutes to the start of the FIFA World Cup. And I'll tell you, when we say Futa iko KBC, understand, Futa iko KBC. And we're going to give you, the phrases as we usually come up with. And so hold out for that. More announcements on the World Cup will be coming your way. And also remember, happening today from the news perspective is that the three-judge bench of the High Court is going to be delivering a judgment on the case in which former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and other parties have gone to court, and they are contesting his impeachment that happened in 2024. You can imagine them. We're looking at October 2024 and June 2026. Within that timeline, the case has been heard in the High Court. Everyone's followed it up, and now it's time for a decision to be made by the judiciary. So we'll be taking a look at that. My apologies for that. And also we shall be having, keeping tabs on the news that is happening around the parliamentary committees, and there is a continuing conversation about the unrest in schools. That's part of what we're taking a look at from the news perspective, plus also news from outside of the country, with His Excellency the President Dr. William Samoei Ruto having a European tour, Belgium and also Finland, among other countries. So those are stories that we'll be taking a look at in the coming week. So straight back to our sporting conversation. We are with Tyrus Wayaki Thuku, and shortly we shall be joined by Kevin Ter, who's a football writer. And Tyrus, let's take a look at, the other African teams. Egypt has always been considered to be more Salah and friends. But are we seeing a different shift in this Egyptian side that is headed to the World Cup this year?
Just to take you back a bit, please. Remember you'd spoken of history repeating itself at a World Cup in reference to Mexico opening the tournament with South Africa, just as they did in South Africa 2010. And then there's also a bit of that because Mexico are in the same group as South Korea, with whom they were in the same group in the 2018 FIFA World Cup. Okay, Mo Salah and friends has now shifted to friends and Mo Salah, or rather friends of Mo Salah. They're playing for him as opposed to him playing for them, as it previously might have been thought to be. I like Egypt. I like, and Nuhu has just told us the compactness of Egypt. They played Brazil, and the only giveaway was a mistake they made at the back. It's the basics, really, for me, when it comes to African teams. It's not about whether African teams know how to play football. The artistic side, they're brilliant at it. The scientific side, we saw Morocco usher into that world of science football, the defensive counter-attacking football. And hopefully other teams from Africa can follow suit. We saw Ivory Coast play France and beat them. They were playing that defensive counter-attacking football. At some point it was all France, but they couldn't break that defensive wall. So with Egypt, they're a compact side. In fact, after conceding, they responded almost immediately and equalized. It's just that, again, basics, in the end, they lost concentration and 2-1 that game ended. So for African sides, and we can use the example of Egypt against Brazil, it's about getting the basics of avoid those basic defensive errors at the back, and then have focus and concentration. And that stems from discipline. You must have that for the entire 90 minutes plus, because there's always that extra time, and there's even beyond the extra time, there's the time added on that, and in recent times we've been seeing a huge amount of minutes being added on to a game. Although now the new rules that have been brought in by FIFA in the build-up to the World Cup are cutting down on time. They are essentially time-based rules. So still, nonetheless, 90 minutes plus, you have to have that focus.
Well, thank you very much, and to introduce our sign language interpreter, Susan. So let us now get back on Zoom, and we have got one of Kenya's football writers, and we are taking a look at numbers, leagues, and the implications about how this works. Kevin Ter is joining us via Zoom, but let me just give you a context onto this. We have got 1,248 players from four. All right. Before we get to Kevin Ter, let's hear government spokesman Isaac Mwaura, who's speaking at the KICC.
And we are open to questions after this. We are addressing the issues to do with the finance bill. We are looking at also the issue of Ebola, just to re-emphasize what has been said, and also the issue of schools and other issues that may arise. Now, to begin with, it's important to state that this week is very important because we're also going to have the budget highlights in Parliament, and we'll also be looking at what are the areas that the government is focusing on. But also we tend to also look at the issue of the school strikes and what is happening. And you can see that there is a debate whether to have schools closed. There are others who are saying let's do away with the boarding school. But honestly, as a nation, we have a challenge. And we have a challenge, and I think we need to address it. And maybe we as parents need to ask ourselves the question, are we parenting properly? What is lacking? I was at a school yesterday, and they actually told me that the grade 10 learners are more bolder. They're even asking, can you give us an opportunity to communicate with our parents? I don't think we would have said that before. So there's an issue of discipline that we have to have an honest conversation about. We have to have a conversation about. The Bible says in the book of Proverbs 13:24, spare the rod, spoil the child. And he who disciplines their child, because they love them. So we need to ask ourselves, have we dropped the ball? Have we let the parenting role to go back to be done by teachers? We are so busy now, looking for bread. Both fathers and mothers. I beg your pardon. So that's a conversation we need to have. You know, that's a conversation we need to have. Why is it that is happening? We can't just sit back on our laurels. We have to speak about issues of morality. You know, we have to speak about issues of homosexuality and lesbianism in schools. We have to have that difficult conversation as a nation. No matter what it is, we need to have that conversation. Issues of role modeling. What is the father's role? What is the mother's role? That is something we need to have. And we were able to see even some people, even from the opposition, saying that we need to have that dialogue. It's important that we do it. So that then we save the situation, as it were, because these are children, you know, they are destroying their own lives, they are destroying property. So there must be something that must give, you know, going forward. Blaming each other and calling each other names will not help, because that will not end the strikes, that will not end the burning. And we really, really condone with those that, you know, lost their lives, the 16 of them at Utumishi Fire Academy. I visited 7 who had been admitted at KNH, and we are glad to say that all of them have since been discharged, you know, and going home. But 3 of them are going to be on a wheelchair. They are going to be on a wheelchair because they jumped from first floor to the ground, and now they had their limbs. They have to be taken care of. We thank God for all of the people that you know, have come in to help, and also even for the parent who lost you know, her life as they were going to pick their child. Government is very keen, you know, on such processes, and we'll be talking about this. But this is a conversation that we need to have, because today is this school and another, you know. We need to address the issue of mob lynching, you know, the issue of, you know, we saw a young man, Mutuku, you know, be thrown off a bus and then, you know, being run over. Also, we had another incident, you know, of 2 young people, university students, who were burnt alive just because they had a disagreement with a boda operator, you know. Those are things that we need to have a conversation on. We seem to have a generation that really, I think we are losing our sense of humanity. This is a tough conversation that is devoid, that is bereft of our political persuasions and inclinations. We have to have a conversation about fake news, misinformation, disinformation. Like if you look at the finance bill, you realize that a lot of information that is out there is fake. There is nothing to do with the motor vehicle circulation tax. That's not true. There is no tax on bread. You know, there is no tax on mitumba. And what happened is that we had the white bill. But the bill that people are supposed to focus on is the green bill, as published by the National Assembly. Because when a bill comes from the Treasury to the National Assembly, it's in white. You know, any bill that has not been published is in white anyway, even from a private member. You know, drawing my experience from being a legislator for 2 houses of parliament. So the green one. But even then, some of those proposals that may have been there were dropped, and further to it, currently the National Assembly is going around to get views from Kenyans. So you present your views. We just had a very robust meeting this morning with the National Treasury and the National Parliament and my office to discuss about these issues. And that is why we are giving that door, so that if you have something that you need to present and you feel it is offending in the bill, then we need to look at it. However, we need to strike a balance between, you know, because there are 2 sides to our development. How do we raise revenue to finance our development? We shall have the appropriations bill, what is popularly known as the budget, being read. But then how do you finance that very development? There must be a nexus, a balance. And I think ni vizuri tuseme hapa kabisa, like the way we used to say in the 3rd administration, that kulipa ushuru ni kujitosheleza. You see, that is something that we need to inculcate, that we are the ones who can finance our own development. Nobody else can do it for us. Because if we don't do so, what we end up in is having a lot of you know, debts, public debt, which is not sustainable, you know, to be precise. So going forward, therefore, it is important to look at some of the positive things that are in the finance bill. For example, the finance bill is going to enhance certainty in the tax treatment of gratuity payments by clarifying eligibility. Here, if you are on contract, you should have a contract for 3 years, not less, And gratuity is not going to be taxed as long as your contract is 3 years. And in addition, it is up to 31%, because right now the regime has been a bit different. So it's important that that is very well emphasized. There is also a very clear simplification of the sale of scrap taxation framework for scrap metal, so that there is a 5% final withholding tax on whoever is buying this scrap metal, because right now that sector is unregulated. So it's just a way of ensuring that it's neat and tidy. And it will also help us to know where this scrap metal is coming from. There have been accusations of people who are destroying, public infrastructure just to get steel because of the high demand in other jurisdictions. So it will actually help in promoting regulation of this sector through visibility, hence curb vandalism of public properties. That's very important, why that is being done. The other thing that also is critical in the finance bill is to avoid double taxation for trusts through the introduction of a one-stop approach taxation of income of trustees. So if you are creating a trust, and trusts are very good vehicles for wealth creation and even succession management. When you transfer your assets to a trust, then you will not be taxed double, because it's your trust anyways. We are trying to encourage as a government people to get into these ways of financing their own wealth, and to ensure that, because when you have trust, you are able to mobilize more capital, you're able to do huge projects. So that is why we are removing that double taxation, so that you are not charged or you're not taxed as an individual and then as a trust when you are actually a trustee. I think the issue of Mitumba has been overplayed. It is important to say categorically, as the government spokesman is speaking on behalf of government, the whole of government, that there is no such provision. There is no such provision. However, it is important to state clearly, a good number of the proposals that you can see here were actually from the sector people themselves. So that then people need to understand that before we make any tax exemption, any tax proposals, there are consultations. But there is no such from Mitumba. And also, there is elimination of restrictions on interest deduction for leasing and lending businesses. Now, let me explain this in terms of layman language. Currently, the law provides that you can either do lending or leasing, services. You have to do both, lending and leasing. I beg your pardon. You have to do both. But the new proposal is that you can either do lending or leasing. That means there will be more players in the market than it is now. Hiyo ni kusaidia mkulima mdogo, so that more people can have a bite at the cherry. So that is why lending and leasing, you don't have to do both. You can either do lending or leasing. And that is why the restriction has been exempted.
That is the government spokesperson, Dr. Isaac Maura, speaking on a variety of issues, the schools and rest, the finance bill, Ebola preparedness, and amongst other things. Well, it is Sports Check, and we are counting 3 days and just over 10 and a half hours to the start of the FIFA World Cup 2026, hosted by Mexico, the USA, and Canada. And conversations around this. And we are going to be joined by Kevin Tea, who is on Zoom, and also we've got Tirasweya Kithuku here. And the conversation we want to have with Tea is about the leagues and the implications and the stories that we can pick from this. Think of this, 1,248 players from 449 clubs. But England has got 200 players on this roster. Germany has 109, France has 86, Spain 86, Italy 71, Saudi Arabia 49, Major League Soccer has got 44. The most number of players from any African league is from the PSL, 19, most of them with South Africa. And so we're joined by Tea. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Wahome. I'm happy to be here. How are you today?
All right, thank you very much. And Tea, I know you keep following the football across the spectrum, and coming into this World Cup, implications about the opportunities and one, performing at the highest level when it comes to clubs, and two, leagues that look like they generate more of the younger players. What is it that you've picked from the numbers as far as, league contributions to the 1,248 players is concerned?
I think probably the major talking point will be the African leagues, to be specific. As you put it, the PSL has produced the highest number of players, and of course, all 19 are from the PSL from South Africa. They are in the South African national team. Then we have Egypt, who have 16, also for the Egyptian national team. The rest of the players, the rest of the countries that are going to of the 9. So those are just 2 countries that have more than 10. The rest have 2, 3, 4. So it probably brings into question on the strength of our African leagues. More also because this is the premier football competition globally, and when your best players or the best players from the country playing locally or playing within the continent are not here, then it maybe says a lot about the African leagues in general.
Well, let's talk about what we've seen with South Africa, Egypt. It can be a coincidence that these are the 2 and you could throw. I mean, it's quite interesting. Morocco has got a good domestic scene, but I think they've only got 3 players from that scene. But when you bring in Egypt, when you mention South Africa, a story is told through the inter-club competitions and how they perform. But what's it that you're seeing with these 2 countries that can produce at least 2/3 of their squad from their domestic leagues?
I think from their continental performance, it's very, very clear. Melody Sundowns just won the CAF Champions League. Orlando Pirates, who also have a good number of players, are the league winners. So you can imagine Sundowns have the Champions League, but they do not have the domestic league at home. So it shows probably the level of competition that was in the PSL in this coming season, this last season. When you go to Egypt as well, Zamalek reached the final of CAF Confederation Cup. As we all know, Al Ahly are the record CAF Champions League winners. There's also the new guys in the block, the Pyramid FC, who are also going for all the best players around. So basically, it's no coincidence that the 2 countries with the highest number of players at the World Cup playing in their domestic leagues have dominated, continental football in the CAF club competitions, that is the Confederation and the Champions League. So they are probably the strongest leagues in the world. I also thought Morocco, I know Morocco is a very strong league, but for some reason they only have 2 players, I think, a keeper and a defender, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's actually a keeper and a defender in their World Cup squad. But again, we have players of Moroccan heritage all over the world. Talk of Spain, France, Portugal. So, and that criteria worked for them in the last World Cup, where they reached the semi-final. So if it's a plan or that has worked before, maybe they did not really have a reason to change and start calling more players from the legs.
Well, it's always a very big, interesting conversation. And with the big, looking at the leagues, the top 5, I mean, what we'd call the top 5 leagues in Europe, it's France, Spain, Italy, and England. The one and Germany. So those are the top 5 leagues in Europe. What's the dominance and the opportunities that they're creating? Because we're seeing a lot of players in the from who are representing Africa are coming actually from the leagues in these countries. And we can throw in Belgium and the Netherlands for kicks.
Come again, Wahome, I did not get you. There was some background noise.
Let's take a look at the African teams. For example, I mean, let's talk about the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Not a single player who's based on African soil, not even in their domestic league. And sorry, only one player who's based on African soil. He plays for Pyramids. One. You can imagine. Then you've got all the other players coming in from the top 7 leagues in Europe: England, Spain, Italy, France, adding Belgium and the Netherlands, because those are 2 other places where diaspora African players grow. What's it with these diaspora players and trying to ensure that you've got the best performance consistently for these nations?
I think in the last few years, we've really seen a big surge of players with African, not even the Congolese, just the African heritage trying to come back to Africa. We've seen Congo have the likes of Twanzebe from Burnley. There's this young midfielder from Sunderland, like the name slips a little. There's a striker they recently converted as well. So we have so many players based in majorly in Belgium, France, converting or rather agreeing to national team collapse from teams from Africa and Congo to be specific. Of course, the opinion on that is divided. Maybe some believe it's because of opportunities like to feature in tournaments like the World Cup. But again, they are playing in the top leagues in Europe. These are players in the Premier League. These are players in Serie A. These are players in Ligue 1. These are players in the Bundesliga and La Liga. So they are not there by accident. It means that they are quality players selected by those teams. And the fact that they have decided to represent their country of origin in Africa, like the Congo, for example, who only have one African-based player, makes the team stronger. For example, who took DR Congo to the World Cup? It's Twanzebe. He's born in England, has played for the junior teams, for the England junior teams. So I believe that these players agreeing to play for the African countries like Congo and the likes actually makes the team stronger. So I'm actually pro-getting these players back home. And I think Kenya has also followed suit, and we are seeing a good number of players born in Europe coming to play at home.
I mean, your take home from the 4-0 win over Lesotho yesterday, just for the record.
Sorry?
The 4-0 win over Lesotho yesterday, your take home from it? Because it would be an indicator of trying to tap in from about diaspora players.
Diaspora players probably what I would say. I think the defender at the back, Dion Woodman, looks like he has something in him. It was also nice to see the new boys, Mika Obiero and Sydney Agina, both get assists. Overall, it was actually good to see Harambee Stars score 4 goals, because I think that has been scoring has been probably the country's biggest Achilles heel over the years. We are always on target probably once or twice, so scoring 4 wasn't too bad to see. But again, we were playing against Lesotho, so in the grand scheme of things, or that bigger picture, there isn't really much to pick from that game. But of course, winning a football match against whichever opponent is always good. But let's see how we move, or how better we get from here. But there isn't really much to pick. But for me, the main thing that I would say from yesterday's game was that defender Dion Woodman, who made his debut. I think if those are the standards he can keep against better opponents, then we probably have a very good defender for the next 5 or so years.
All right. Yeah, I'm in studio with Tiras Wayaki is with us. Tiras, you have a comment, or is it?
Yes, Kevin, it's a pleasure meeting you on here. I usually follow you on Facebook and appreciate your posts, especially the tables of the FKF Kenya Premier League, the FKF National Super League. You really keep us abreast with the latest. Just to take you back a bit, let's move from Kenya just a bit and look at Morocco. Morocco won CHAN here last August, and they won it with obviously a local contingent, because CHAN is all about locally based players. And then the Africa Cup of Nations followed 2-3 months later, and they had virtually an entirely different squad from the one that won CHAN here. And this one brought in the Moroccan diaspora. And Morocco struggled through AFCON, with an exception of maybe 1 or 2 games. Like I'd mentioned earlier, they did very well against Cameroon in the quarterfinal, but by and large, they sort of struggled. Should they have mixed and matched what won CHAN here with a bit of the diaspora to bring out the best of Morocco? Wasn't it, in your opinion, do you think they self-annihilated, self-sabotaged themselves? Couldn't they have done better if they mixed and matched, or maybe even stuck to the local squad?
I really don't think so, because even I believe they went for the squad they selected. Going with the foreign-based players is okay. If we just go back to that CHAN squad here in Kenya, they scrapped through. For example, they could not beat Kenya Harambee Stars, who had barely prepared for the tournament. No single friendly match before we went to the tournament, but we managed to beat Morocco with a man down, I think, if I'm not wrong. So the foreign legion for them worked at the 2022 World Cup. And despite, you've talked about the home struggles during AFCON. I think it's never easy for any nation hosting a tournament with the expectations on their shoulders, there is bound to be struggles. But for some reason, they scrapped through and reached the final that ended in the way it ended. So I honestly don't think picking one or two players from their league is a bad thing, because look at the players they have picked. These are players playing in top leagues in Europe. Talk of Real Madrid, talk of PSG, talk of Marseille, they are spread across the top leagues in Europe, and there's really probably no way you can overlook a player playing the English Premier League for example, from Raja, if it's in the same position. So in my opinion, I think they have too much talent at their disposal, both in the local leagues and abroad. And at the end of the day, if you were to pit a player against the other, probably the one playing in Europe will always carry the day. And for me, I think they just did the right thing.
All right. Well, Kevin, that's great insights, about the diaspora players. Everyone in Africa will be looking at that. But with this World Cup, we're going to see something different, and this is about officiating. And Tiras also and Kevin, so you can come in here, separately. The first thing is the 10-second substitution rule. So you don't have to go to the center of the pitch. You have got 10 seconds to leave the pitch. Whichever way you choose, up, down, sideways, that's up to you. But if you spend more than 10 seconds on the pitch, unless it's a situation that is, for example, in the case of an injury where something else has to be done, you've got 10 seconds, get out. If not so, the incoming player stays out for a minute, a team plays for 10 minutes. We saw a friendly happen like that over the weekend. Tiras, I'll start with you, then come to Kevin. The implication of this, how much time is it going to save?
If I were a coach, I'd tell my players it's actually 5 seconds in my book. 5-second substitution, not even 10. Because if you do anything beyond 5 seconds, you're now sort of really pushing boundaries, because that clock goes so fast, and the next thing you know, it will inconvenience the guy who's coming in to replace you, because he has to stick out for an entire minute. So in my book, some of these rules, like I'd sort of insinuated earlier, they're about time saving. We've seen players waste a lot of time here and there, and games go up to a point whereby you're playing 103 minutes of what is supposed to be 90 minutes plus 3 minutes of time added on. So in my book, 5 seconds, unless you have an injury, just get out the way, let my substitution come in. We're playing against the clock. We're not just playing against an opponent here. Football is really going to change at this World Cup. So it's a brilliant rule. We've seen it before it was implemented. That substitution rule was really, it was open. It was really leading to a lot of time wastage, especially when you're ahead and you want to kill time. You don't want your opponent to catch up. It's about time that football shows who's in charge in as far as time management is concerned. So I have no problem with that.
Kevin, your take on that rule, the 10-second substitution rule?
I perfectly agree with that. I think I'm one of those people that really gets annoyed when teams that are leading or teams that look overwhelmed start wasting time, maybe through substitution. I don't know how they'll handle the players that just lie down on the ground, sometimes faking injuries, but I think this is a step in the right direction. If you're not out within 10 seconds and you'll play a man down, and who knows, 1 minute is such a long time, you could end up conceding a goal, and definitely your coach will be on your neck. So I think it will play a good part in saving a lot of time. We don't want matches dragging to 100 minutes, 105 minutes, 120 minutes, just because there was a lot of time wasted during substitution and the like. So I'm pro that rule. If I were in charge, I would probably have made it shorter, probably 5-6 seconds. 10 is such a long time, but it's a good start for the game.
Hey, Tea, if we take you to IFAB, everyone will be doing substitutions like basketball. Quick turnaround. Yes. Next one, Tiras and Kevin, watch your mouth. In the case of a confrontation and you're talking to a player from the opposing team and you've covered your mouth, straight red. Tiras.
It makes sense because we've seen serious allegations, especially around Vinicius Jr., who has claimed in the past to have been racially abused by a player who's covered his mouth, either with his hand or with a shirt. So let everything be as democratic as it ought to be. let's talk openly. If I have an issue with you, Wahome, I tell my captain, he goes to the ref. That quick due process, instead of me coming to you and start doing this and then the next thing we're fighting or the game is stopped because there's an uproar. That makes so much sense for me. But I just hope that players will not abuse that process to come up with wild allegations, because teammates are allowed to talk. Let's not forget that, with their mouths covered to one another. Let's hope their opponents don't kind of use that against them and come up with fake allegations, or the teammates that have covered their mouths and pretending to be talking to one another hurl abuse at an opponent player. I hope players will be as professional as it gets and not abuse the advantages and disadvantages that come with this. Although at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings.
Kevin, the watch your mouth rule that has been introduced.
I honestly don't believe if you cover your mouth after a heated moment with an opponent, whatever you're going to say is probably not something so good. And if it's good, why should you cover your mouth? So I think it's a good thing. We just want to avoid controversies in future. You see, when you cover your mouth and probably say something different, it can always be interpreted otherwise. And you probably note, for example, in the case of Vinicius and the Benfica guy, had that player not covered his mouth, we probably would have known what he said, and the situation would not have escalated as it did. So for me, I think if there is nothing on the pitch that a player can say that probably warrants covering their mouth, if it's not a tactical thing or a team move, especially if you're talking to an opponent and you're covering your mouth, you're obviously not saying something that's so nice. And to curb things like racial abuse allegations, yes, if you cover your mouth, I'm for that. I'm for that. Just dismiss that player. Why not? Say whatever. If there's something you want to say on the pitch, just leave your mouth uncovered and say it. Let the whole world know that player X said 1, 2, 3 things. I don't think there's anything good that comes out of a player's mouth when it's covered and they're addressing an opponent after a heated moment. So I'm for that new rule.
All right, we're just coming to a close. So the other one that is coming up, and we can make reference to the AFCON final, players leaving the field of play. Previously, there is a rule about team players leaving the field of play. It was a 15-minute rule. Now, that has been thrown out the window. So quickly, Tiras, you leave the field of play, you know, in dissent, you try come back, red card. Right move?
Yes. Yes.
Right move. Kevin,
yes.
Is that the right decision to take? Red card rather than have the 15-minute clock run down?
I will say yes or no, but now, why would players? There's a reason why players will walk off the pitch. I don't know if we're really treating the problem or we are just going for the side shows. I do not entirely agree with that rule. How about probably they work on the main issues, which probably is officiating? I don't think if the officiating is fair, in as much as players are supposed to be disciplined and behave in the best of ways, it's a rule that I don't think addresses the main.
Tiras, you're responding to that.
I don't know whether it has to do with the Morocco-Senegal final, where we witnessed a bit of dissent, quote unquote, from Senegal, who felt that the officiating was against them, and they stormed off and came back in. I don't know whether that has sort of played into this rules formation, but I think we also need a situation whereby the refereeing position is given back its dignity. We've seen players even swear at referees. I mean,
if I'm a referee and you swear, I'll give you 2 red cards.
And they don't even give them any cards in the past. And that happened up until, I think, 2 seasons ago, when now rules had to really be redone and dignity restored to the referee's office. I think it has a bit to do with all this kind of shenanigans, and I'm all for it.
All right, so there you've had it. It's a look at the World Cup, the teams, the African teams, the implications, what stories every league will be telling at the World Cup by the kind of players they've presented, and also the rules that will apply at the FIFA World Cup 2026. Thank you very much, Tiras Wayeki, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Kevin Tea, Asante Sana. And earlier also we had Nuhu Adams coming, joining us from Ghana, giving us a whole African football perspective. My name is Daniel Wahome, sign language interpreter. Has been Susan. Took good time for us to, take a break. Remember what to look out for. The judgment on the impeachment of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and also later we're going to have Kurunzi, Mashinani, and Tambrini. Have a good day.
His picture is proudly pinned on the notice board of Pumwani Social Hall, where he encourages them posthumously from the place where he honed his skills before his outstanding performance in the 1988 Olympic Games, where the late Robert Napunyi Wangila won the only boxing gold medal for Kenya up to date in the welterweight category.